Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, Twitch chat. Welcome back to Let Us Play. I'm your host, Father Evan. It's good to be with y'all today, and I hope you're having a good day. Good to see you, Brayherd. Good to see you, Bree. Good to see you, Hope. Hope everyone's having a good day. And Brayherd, congratulations. You've won the crown of Furstendom. I find it funny that the Orthodox member of the chat has won the crown this day since we're going to St. Peter's Basilica. But anyway, the seat of the Pope and everything. Although technically not the seat of the Pope, because technically his seat is the Lateran. But anyway, we're going to be going on a mini pilgrimage. So this is a world that the Vatican actually commissioned in Minecraft Education Edition as part of the Holy Year. So we're going to be walking through it. I have my phone with the actual map from the Vatican, so I can point out various grottos and various pieces of artwork that the game may not. But otherwise, yeah, I think that's it. So we can go ahead. Oh, wait, before we go in, first of all, hi, Casey Fox. Good to see you. But welcome to Rado Batto. Thank you for the follow, Rado. Hope you have a good time. And let's dive on in. So, looks a little barren. This is the Via della Concilione, which I probably just butchered the pronunciation of. It's the road that leads to St. Peter's. They did a really good job of modeling St. Peter's, I've got to say. It is just St. Peter's and the square, because this is where the Apostolic Palace should be. Like, that's the window where the Pope waves at everyone. Yeah, I think they did a really good job. The only odd thing is the statues. All these white pillars are supposed to be statues of saints. And the fact that they just kind of look like number ones is a little weird, but yeah, they got both fountains, and the facade looks amazing. You were amazed by my creative mind. Sure. This was commissioned by the Vatican. So the Vatican's obelisk was transported from Egypt to Rome long time ago. I don't know why they left out the year, because it was like during the Roman Empire. In 1586, engineer Domenico Fontana led hundreds of men, horses, and cranes to move it only a short distance. They had to be extra careful not to crack it. They even had a strict rule about staying quiet during the move so nobody could shout and distract the workers at a crucial moment. Oh, that's so Roman. Yeah, no, I did not make this. This was made by a team actually commissioned by the Vatican. What was the obelisk for? Okay, so the obelisk was brought from Egypt to Rome, kind of as a conquest of like, look, we've conquered Egypt. And so there are actually multiple obelisks all throughout Rome, which have kind of that history, but they just became symbols of an important place in some ways. Commonly found actually in the circuses. So that one was actually in the Vatican Circus, which sounds weird off the top of, without any context, but that was like the not a coliseum, but it was like the performance area for horse races and fights and executions. It was moved here. I think the theological significance is kind of God of all the world and God overall, but me, hey, email space, my friend who plays way too much Minecraft. How's this? I only had a little bit of time. So here's the major facade. It's on these steps actually where they'll set up an outdoor altar area for when they're celebrating Mass in the square, because the square can hold a lot more people than the Basilica can. Fun fact, I've never once played Minecraft. It's fair. I like it, but we're gonna... Oh, they have you, like, penned in. Like, this is one of the ways that you can get to the outside and go around the Basilica. Right there. But then there's multiple doors, as you may notice. So I want to list these off. This first door is the Door of Death. Technically, this is not even the door. The door is... This is just the entrance of this facade. Apparently, there was a key there. I didn't see it. So this is the Door of Death. Then the next one to the right is the Door of Good and Evil. And apparently I got the last keys. Apparently all I had to do was talk. This is the Filaret Door. Door of Sacraments. And then this is a very important door. This is the Holy Door. This is the actual one whenever you hear talk of like the Pope opened the Holy Door at St. Peter's. This is the door you go through. So Vatican Sacred Jubilee entrance, the door is sealed off most of the time, only opening for Jubilee years. During that time, millions of pilgrims will pass through it after the Jubilee. It is carefully closed up again using mortar and bricks to seal it until the next Jubilee. Yeah, they actually like put a seal on it. It's pretty intense. Door looks solid. I know they didn't open it for this. Anyway, here's the actual Basilica. They did a really good job modeling this. I guess what we'll do is we'll probably go down the main nave and circle back. So in these nooks in these pillars, there's two things. The lower portion, what this cross person shape is, and they're considering walrus on the door instead of a seal. Oh, no, I think they should put an orca. So on the inside of each of these pillars, excuse me, is a saint who founded an order, and then above them are depictions of virtues. And of course, dead ahead is the Baldacchino. Where are we? We're in St. Peter's. Good to see you, Sub-Zero. There's a statue missing, by the way. This one actually kind of annoys me that they didn't put in. There should be a statue of St. Peter sitting right here. Like, right here. He doesn't have feet or toes anymore because everyone's touched his feet so much that it's worn away. It's made of bronze. Anyway, this is the Baldacchino. So the Baldacchino was designed by Bernini. It's even more impressive in person. And its main job is, one, it serves as a canopy over the altar to say, hey, this is sacred, this is important, pay attention to this spot, because this is the main altar built over the tomb of St. Peter. It also mediates the space, because you may notice that the altar's not all that high, and the space is huge for the cupola. So it helps to mediate the space, kind of uniting heaven and earth is the way it's sometimes described. Down in front, this is the Confessio. So you may remember from the Basilica I've built in Minecraft of it having a Confessio as well. So this is a space, this is kind of the main reliquary built over the tomb of St. Peter with the bones of St. Peter. Oh, I forgot to point something out in the back. We'll get back to it. And surrounding the altar, we'll go up on the altar. By the way, in front of the altar, there is nothing. You could just jump down into the Confessio. Yes, those are in fact NPCs. So the Baldacchino is as tall as a 6-story building. So to give you some context of how tall that thing is. Legend claims part of the metal came from the ancient Roman Pantheon. The bees carved on it come from Pope Urban VIII's family crest. Despite its enormous weight, Bernini used spiral pillars to make it seem like it's swirling upward to a perfect example of a Baroque-style grand illusion. And indeed, they do. They kind of captured it here, but not really. It has this great, like, swaying effect where it really does spiral all the way around. It's quite impressive. But yeah, so surrounding the altar are these 4 nooks, each of these representing a different key saint. So this one is Saint Longinus, the soldier who thrust his spear into the side of Christ. Thank you, phone. I know he's live. I'm here. Yeah, you're welcome. Let's see. 32. I want to make sure I get this right. Yep, that's Saint Andrew. I should have known by the cross. Older brother of Peter. 36. Saint Veronica, of the veil, who wiped the face of Jesus. And then this one is... Sure. These numberings make no sense. 59. Statue of... St. Helen, who discovered the place of the true cross. St. Longinus is real? He is kind of a folk tale. I mean, obviously, like, that a soldier pierced the side of Christ happened in Scripture, so it's fairly likely that it's real, especially with the whole, hey, put your hands in my side. Whether or not his name was Longinus as historical fact is questionable, but it's strong tradition. Also, that's where the spear is kept. There's actually an altar under each of these with a pertaining relic. And at special occasions, you see these balconies up here. They will actually unveil the related relic for veneration by the public. St. Helen's son was kind of a big deal too. Whomst? Spear located in the Vatican? Yep. So this is the altar of the chair. This is kind of where they actually do a lot of the regular masses. So like all the special masses will happen there. Larger daily masses, ordinations will regularly happen here. It's also sometimes known as... where is it? This list is inscrutable. Thank you, the Vatican. Cathedra Petri, altar of St. Peter. It's held up by St. Ambrose, St. Athanasius, St. John Chrysostom, and St. Augustine. So 2 Eastern bishops and 2 Western bishops. Which you can kind of see the figures that they made for this. The tribune altar of the chair of St. Peter. Yeah, they also call this area the tribune. The bronze seat houses an older wooden chair inside, which many say belonged to St. Peter, which they actually, I think, put on display recently. Bernini framed it with golden rays and clouds, making it look like floating among the angels. Metal braces help secure the antique wood so it doesn't shift or get damaged under all the bronze. And then the window there depicts the Holy Spirit. That window is actually replaced. Oh, also you can just walk through the altars. That window was replaced because during the Second World War, a bomb went off pretty close and blew it out. So yeah, we'll go back this way now. See, whose tomb is this? Oh, good, it tells me. Tomb of Pope Alexander VIII by Count Arigio di San Martino, 1725. The monument is notable for using a variety of precious marbles, including African black lyddite, fior di pesco, yellow and antique green, and the alabasters of Montalto and Palombara. There's something like 300 popes buried in St. Peter's, so... Altar of St. Peter healing the crippled. Painting is reproduction by Francesco Mancini, 1748. This painting tells the story of Peter helping a crippled man stand and walk again. Mancini used bright light at the center as if a spotlight from the sun is shining on the event. A separate mosaic copying the painting took skilled artists several years to finish, placing countless tiles in each color variation. Yeah, so that's a cool thing. Here's a trick that you can play on people if you ever travel to St. Peter's with them. Is after you leave St. Peter's, ask them, what was your favorite painting? And they'll say, oh, I really liked this one. And you can be like, haha, there are no paintings in St. Peter's. They're all mosaics. They are some of the best mosaics in the world. They are incredibly intricate. Oh, whoops, I had I don't need to have the game music or the usual Minecraft music. I realized I had two musics going at once. My bad. Okay, Altar of St. Leo the Great by Alessandro Algardi, 1645-1653. Algardi carved a jaw-dropping high-relief scene of Pope Leo meeting Attila the Hun, really happened, that some say may have helped prevent the attack on Rome. The figures stand out so far as that it's almost like a sculpture in front of the wall rather than attached to it. Technically called a high relief means more than half the figure juts out from the background, so it looks nearly freestanding, a 3D effect created centuries before 3D movies. Altar of Our Lady of the Column. Inside the altar is a painting of Mary and Jesus, which some believe to have had special healing qualities. The marble frame around it can sparkle with rainbow colors in certain light, perfect for catching a visitor's eye. Architects in the Renaissance era often traveled far to find rare, colorful marbles, giving each altar a one-of-a-kind shine. And I love the portico. A lot of the side altars have this repeated portico pattern, and it's really nice and really elegant. And of course, there are confessionals just in random places. Oh, hold on. Let's put him at an altar. Let's put him at an altar. There you go. There you go, meat mass. Altar of the Sacred Heart. Relatively modern altar has a special... 1920, wow, that is pretty recent. Has a special gold background that gleams when sunlight hits it, mixing old school gold leaf style with early 20th century techniques. Using gold backgrounds for religious paintings was super popular in medieval times. By bringing back in 1920, Macholi has created a bridge between old and new art traditions. And directly behind that is the tomb of another pope. Come on, where's the... I see the sparkles! There we go. Tomb of Alexander the Seventh. By Bernini. A bronze skeleton lifts the hourglass from under drapery of jasper that looks as soft as silk in Bernini's final commission, reminding viewers that time runs out for everyone. He even incorporated pre-existing Porta Santa Marta door to the scene as symbolic entrance to eternity. I love this statue. It is so cool because you have... It literally has death kind of like lifting up this drape and its scythe and hourglass. It just looks so cool. It's so dynamic. I love Bernini's sculptures. He was so good. So this is the altar where they do daily mass. Because St. Peter's is an active parish, technically. This is... Oh, okay, there are the sparkles. Oblates of St. Joseph. One of the most recent paintings, 1961. Wow. This piece celebrates the Oblate St. Joseph. The artist chose ancient technique called tempera, which mixes egg yolk and pigments, just like the Egyptians did thousands of years ago. Tempera dries super fast, so each brushstroke had to be just right the first time. No quick do-overs. Oh, I guess that's one of the actual paintings in the Basilica. Most of them are mosaic. Wasn't Bernini also utterly mad? I don't see why that matters or is mutually exclusive. So this is the tomb or monument of Pius VIII. The Pope is shown kneeling in front of Christ on his throne, flanked by statues of Saints Peter and Paul. Allegories are prudence and justice, so there's like figures that metaphorically show those virtues. He was imprisoned in 1808 during the French domination of Italy for refusing to take the oath of allegiance to Napoleon. Yeah, that sounds like a pope. What this also is they don't have it here, but this is the door to the sacristy. And one of my favorite parts about that is that as you're exiting the sacristy, you have to look at this altar. And you have to look at this art piece. And what this one is Altar of the Lie, painted by Roncalli. Painting tells the story of the punishment of the couple Ananias and Sapphira, which is Acts of the Apostles. The bright and bold colors still pop after 400 years, which is pretty impressive. There's rumor that Roncalli put his face on one of the crowd in the onlookers. Plenty of Renaissance and Baroque painters appear in their own works, much how modern filmmakers cameo in their own films today. So Ananias and Sapphira were husband and wife, and they promised they became Christian because it was Acts of the Apostles. They were joining the church, and basically they had promised that they would give a certain amount to the church, and then they withheld a ton of the money. And even when confronted about it, they're like, "Oh no, it's fine." So it's kind of a moral story of, delivering on your promises. And it's a bold statement when you're exiting from the sacristy. Miracle of St. Gregory the Great. Painting captures a remarkable story tied to Pope Gregory the Great. Saatchi's brushwork is so lifelike that the viewer once joked it looked like a photograph long before photography existed. He might have recruited friends to pose for each person in the scene. Baroque artists often use friends or family as stand-ins for historical figures, saving time on hiring professional models. See, asking family for free labor is a time-honored tradition in the church. Door. That goes nowhere. But should... Let's see, where does that door go? 27... So there should be a monument up. So that's a monument to a pope. And as a side entrance into another chapel that we will be able to get to. Altar of the Transfiguration, painted by Raphael. TMNT reference? Raphael's final masterwork shows a radiant figure of Jesus high above the rest of the scene. During World War II, it was stashed away for safety, showing just how valuable it is considered. Raphael died just 37, yet his art influenced generations of painters who studied his glowing colors and balanced designs. For the low resolution, they did a pretty good job of capturing a lot of these pieces, actually. Like, that's clearly recognizable as the Transfiguration. Is this something? 24. This is the monument to Pope Innocent the 11th. Honestly, I'm stunned with the work that went into this. It is a limited tool set, but being education, they have a bit more. So you can see how they've taken notches out of blocks that you can't normally take. But yeah, so this altar, this chapel of the choir. So this is where St. Peter's choir practices, performs, and has a spiritual home. But it's also where they do weddings. This is the main chapel for weddings. I don't know why there's not a description. There used to be one the other day when I was testing this, but... Swiss Guard! We'll come back and talk to him later. I believe this is the presentation of Mary in the temple. Hey, got it. Romanelli, here Mary as a child, confidently climbing the temple steps by herself. Spot the tiny dog watching her? It's a fun detail Romanelli added. See how the gold paint shines? It's real gold leaf, still shimmering after centuries. Real gold leaf doesn't rust or fade like other metals, which is why the glow in these old paintings can stay bright for hundreds of years. It's a little hard to see the dog in this resolution, but I'll take your word for it. More monuments. There are a lot of monuments to popes at St. Peter's. Surprise, surprise. This is the baptistry, actually. So Jesus' baptism, painted by Murata, standing in rippling rivers, so determined to make the water realistic. They studied how sunlight dances on real rivers. The white dove overhead looks out as if it glows on all its own. Painters in the 1600s couldn't rely on bright lights or special effects. They used layered paints to achieve lit from within look. What? I was stuck. I couldn't go backwards for a moment. But inside here, there is an altar. They don't have it here, but there is also the actual baptistry, which has some pretty fun facts. I want to read this to make sure I get it right. Oh, yeah, this is the chapel that has, in each of these corners, it actually has little figures, one that depicts Africa, one that depicts Americas, Asia, and Europe. Where's the actual... There's something about the baptismal font cover itself that I remember reading and wanting to share. Oh, here it is. So there's like this gold lid over the baptismal font, which itself is kind of like this big tub. It is believed that the gold cover rests on a porphyry sarcophagus cover used by Emperor Otto II, believed to be derived from the tomb of Emperor Hadrian. Did the fun facts come with the map? Also, how did you get stuff like this running in Minecraft? So this is Minecraft Education Edition. So this is like a thing. There are worlds that you can use as educational modules, and this is one the Vatican made. And yes, anything where there's the glowing keys, that just came with the game program, or with the map programmed in. So chat, you may have heard of a figure called Charlemagne. A little guy called Charlemagne, kind of an important figure. Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, crowned by the Pope. Well, you see this red stone here? From Prince, yeah, exactly. This red stone here, that is where he was crowned. That is the stone upon which Charlemagne was crowned. It's not in its original position. It was within the old St. Peter's. When this St. Peter's was built, they moved it and they incorporated it into the floor right there at the entrance. And there's no signage saying this is what it is. It just is there. Also, they don't have it here, but as you go down the middle, there's these stars with names of churches that are the relative size of other Catholic churches in the world, just to show off that St. Peter's is the biggest. So we'll go to the other side now. This is the Pietà. It's kind of a famous piece. Sculpture by Michelangelo. It's probably the world's most famous sculpture of religious subject. Michelangelo carved it when he was only 24 years old, and is one of the only one he ever signed. The beauty of its lines and expression leave a lasting impression on everyone. There's also a bulletproof glass wall separating everyone from it. Because in the 90s, one guy came in and thought the statue was talking to him and took some shots at it and damaged it. Monument of Leo XII. Instead of lying in eternal rest, as many tomb figures do, here Pope Leo XII stands extended as if to greet you, a bold departure of style. The design also hints at his role in opening the Holy Door in 1825, like a snapshot in stone. Look closely for carved symbols like keys and crowns that hint to the backstory of the Pope. It's almost like looking for hidden Easter eggs in a video game. Meta! Always one person that ruins it. Yeah, exactly. Excuse me. Oh, that's a fun-looking one. Martyrdom of St. Sebastian. Ah, yes. From a distance, this looks like a regular painting, but once you get close, you find out it's actually a mosaic crafted from thousands of little colored stones, like a puzzle. Cristofari spent over a decade placing each tiny place by hand. Mosaics can endure for centuries without fading because the colors come from actual stones or glass, not paint. It's true. More monuments. Somewhere in one of these side walls like this, there's a tomb of a pope just right there. So this is opposite the chapel of the choir. Which is, let's see, that's 76. Altar of the Trinity. Yep, there you go. You got Father on the right, Son on the left, Holy Spirit is the dove. More monuments. I'm not gonna name every single monument, but if there's one that like you're curious about, let me know. This is the one I was thinking of. I think this is where the altar is actually a tomb, and you can see the Pope's body. Altar of St. Jerome. Jerome is pictured with a lion. He reportedly nursed back to health. Domicino might have visited a real lion in Rome to study its movements and fur patterns. Some artists in the 1600s sketched exotic animals in private menageries. Right. It may or may not be that one. I do remember, though, there is one. Okay. This is 71. This is... Altar of Our Lady of Succor. Succor. When I play Minecraft, I turn village churches into Catholic ones. Am I evangelizing? Sure. Also good to see you, Clutch. Hope you're doing well. Another monument, but doesn't want to tell us who, so handy dandy guide says that is Benedict XIV, out of which the door leads to the cupola elevator. So if you want to go up to the dome, this is where you want to head. Altar of St. Basil shows Basil of Caesarea facing a Roman emperor. Subliras apparently asked a friend to pose for each person in the crowd, so the painting is more like a group photo disguised as a historical event. Sometimes the same friend modeled for multiple people, changing hats or poses so they'd appear as different characters in the final painting. This makes me want to go back to St. Peter's. Fortunately, I'll be there next month. So as you can see by the massive amount of confessionals, this is where confessions happen. And they actually typically will have like a barrier, like a waist-high wooden barrier here that you have to come to get to baptism incoming. I know, it's so awesome. The big day, soon it will be here. Basil went to school with Emperor Julian, the apostate. I did not know that. Martyrdom of Saints Procerus and Martinian. Valentin used deep shadows and candlelit effects to depict these two early Christians in dramatic scene. He even tested different lights at night to show how armor would reflect, giving the metal a realistic gleam. Before stage lights or electricity, Baroque painters experimented with candles and torches for their references. True old-school creativity. Man, the writing of this is a little cringe. Not gonna lie. I appreciate what this is, but the whole, like, before 3D movies, like, no. Altar of Navicella. Navicella means little boat. Painting shows Jesus walking on water with fishermen clinging to their storm-tossed boat. Lanfranco watched the real boats in Venice to get the waves and sails just right. A Baroque artist's goal was to make viewers feel like they were part of the action. Sometimes they even splashed water on their sketches to see how it looked in real life. So the writing does have a certain youth pastor energy. Yeah. What about this door? What does... 58. So this is the monument of St. Clement the 13th. And there is a door and a passageway, but it doesn't say what it is. Oh, one thing I missed. I was wondering about this. So the Chapel of the Trinity that we were in earlier, that is also the Chapel of the Blessed Sacrament. So that's where the main tabernacle for repose and prayer is. However, there is also a tabernacle that is a literal vault at St. Peter's because they have huge masses and sometimes they just need tons of ciboria. And so they'll just, it's apparently, I've never seen it in person myself, but apparently it's like several feet tall. It's got a huge vault door, several shelves. So here we go, Clutch. St. Michael. St. Michael the Archangel. Rennie shows St. Michael wearing armor that was likely modeled after real metal suits and a cape that arcs behind him as if he's about to leap into action. Some viewers compare this to a superhero movies. There's the youth minister energy, reminding us that dynamic comic-like poses exist in art centuries before modern films. How about we talk about how we moved to dynamic poses historically? Anyway. Is that the washing of the nets? It's hard to tell. Burial of Saint Petronilla. Guarcino painted the two stories in one frame. Below, explorers find Petronina's tomb. Above, her soul rises toward the light. It's like a split-screen image from 400 years ago. Guarcino's name means squinter, a nickname he got because he supposedly had a slight eye issue. It didn't stop him from mastering dramatic lighting effects. St. Peter raising Tabitha. This mosaic, inspired by painting Placido Constanzi, depicts the resurrection of the widow Tabitha by Peter in the city of Joppa. Facing the tombs is the Tabitha altar, flanked by two pillars in gray granite, consecrated in 1726. Yeah, there are tons of altars of St. Peter's, especially from an era in the church wherein, there wasn't concelebration, so all visiting priests would need a separate altar to celebrate their mass while on their own pilgrimage. So that is the general, and again, like there is so much more detail in real life. Let's go up to the cupola. Meep mass. Wait, we gotta find an altar. There's an altar. There. Put him at the main altar. Who's the nearest one? So let's go talk to this Swiss guard. I'm sorry, this is a restricted area. You need at least 10 keys to enter here. Oh, you have enough keys. Impressive. Now I can take a break. Wow, where'd you go? Hope you don't have a fear of heights. There is actually a pathway that you can take. There's like a staircase that leads you to the roof of St. Peter's. And apparently, I haven't done it, but apparently it takes you up this sort of curved wall along the cupola. And it's this really like narrow staircase. So you're climbing in a really tight space in a really uncomfortable way. Look at that floor work, though. That mosaic. So good. Well, that is the upper level of St. Peter's Basilica. So what if we went down a level? I don't mean returning to the ground level either. It's wild to think that there was a time that this was mostly lit by candles. A virtual church cannot be used to hold mass, but does it contain holiness? I think it can contain a reflection of holiness. Its holiness is not derived from itself or from what it is a facsimile of. Entrance to the grottos. Yeah, and so directly under each of those 4 monuments around the main altar, there is an altar space directly below them. I think because of the Minecraft constraints, this is the best they could do, but there is an altar down here. So we'll come back this way first. So this is the tomb of Pius XII. Can virtual spaces be sacred, or do they need to be made of wood and stone and metal rather than electrons? I would say from a viewpoint of sacramentality that there has to be something tangible to be fully sacred. You know, that it is spirit and soul. I think, again, like, there's that sense of facsimile that this itself is, like, has a sense of holiness, but may not be, you know, it's not as though the server or my computer are now considered sacred or holy, but that this is an experience that draws us into holiness. But we have this chapel here. It's a small little one. This one's official title is the Clementine Chapel, also known as the Chapel of St. Peter. This is... So basically on this wall and some of the material used here is from Sacred Silence has no tangibility. That's fair, but it would still require senses. But like this is... There's several altars dedicated to the tomb itself. There's obviously the high altar. There's this one, which is kind of the most intimate of them. And then there's another actually on the other side as well, underneath the Confessio. Let's see. Oh, I went the wrong way. So if we come up this way, like this is part of the tomb of St. Peter. Which is incorporated into the bedrock of the church itself. And a lot of these chapels down here are just dedicated to individual popes throughout the ages. Can a priest actually request to say Mass at some of these altars, or is it reserved for specific people? So it used to be that any priest could request to celebrate Mass at St. Peter's, and he would just be assigned an altar. Pope Francis has changed the rules around St. Peter's, specifically inviting priests rather than celebrating their own mass to con-celebrate the daily masses to emphasize the communal nature of it. Yeah, if you come down this way, these are actually, this is the actual steps back into the Confessio. And so, like, that other altar I was showing you is, like, right under there. But then they also have this altar underneath here. I like the little ambo they've made. And this one is called... Opening of the Confessio. They just call it the central altar. So it's kind of the central altar of the tomb area. So again, there's all these tombs, which are also serve as altars, as a way of asking to have the person pray for the Pope. One of these belongs to St. John Paul II. Where's... Oh no, they moved him somewhere else. But 27. So this had been the tomb in this nook here for John Paul II. But I think once he was canonized, he got moved to a different location, I guess. I forget exactly where. Yeah, you can come down here just as a regular visitor to St. Peter's. To get into the Scavi, which we'll go to next, you need a actual like guest pass. Where am I going? This goes way back. Oh no, I'm gonna get lost in the tombs. Okay, I got unlost. I think I found chairs. I feel like there's an altar that's missing from here. Like, we have chairs, we have an ambo, we have chairs for people to sit in for the congregation. I just feel like there's something missing. This is the entrance to the Vatican's Necropolis. It's first century Roman burial site filled with brightly colored tombs. Some rumors claim a red sports car was found painted there, but it was likely a chariot. Construction workers stumbled upon these ancient graves while digging up in the 1940s, revealing a whole host of the city of the dead. And they have like a... more tombs. Okay. Now we are underneath the catacomb, or well, underneath the lower level. And now this, I mapped this out earlier. There's a lot of cool stuff going on that they can't really show. One of my favorite details is one of these tombs in the necropolis. Yeah, it's the dig of the well. The exoelement involved in it. It is. But in one of these tombs, there's this really cool thing that ancient Christians did, wherein they painted what appears to be, I believe, Hermes. Like it's a young man. And fun fact, actually, in the early church, Christ was usually depicted beardless, but it looks like Hermes with a sheep over his shoulders. It's like, okay, well, that's a pretty normal pagan symbol. And around him are vines with grapes on them. It's like, okay, well, that's a pretty normal symbol for Bacchus. It's like, well, actually, the cool thing is they're both symbols for Christ, and the person who made that tomb was subverting the images and the expectations of culture, because what you would not normally see two patronages of pagan gods mixed like that, but at a glance your average person wouldn't think anything of it. So it's a great way for them to use this image of like, oh, you think it's Hermes, but it's actually Christ the good shepherd. Oh, you think it's the grapes of Bacchus, but it's actually the grapes for the wine of the Eucharist. Yeah, you can go pretty far back in the Necropolis. And I believe, if I understand how they've mapped this out versus the actual map, believe, let's see. Can we go further back? Okay, we can go further back that way. So that one was O. So I believe that one's Q. They're numbered on this map. That's why I'm just saying off random letters. So I believe where this reddish orange stone is, I believe this is the one that they determined is most likely to be the tomb of St. Peter. It's that, or it's in this back area for sure, but it's hard to tell based on the map the Vatican provides and the map here. But there's like markings on the tomb saying this is Peter, and there's actually Christian graffiti on the wall of it. So we have pretty good sense that it's probably the tomb of Peter. So yeah, that's the tour of St. Peter's. But that's not all that the Vatican has given to us, because they have also given us a job. So if we come back to the this, sometimes we'll come across supervisor. So you're the new assistant to San Pietrini? Oh, let me welcome you to Vatican City. The Vatican obelisk welcomes pilgrims and tourists from all over the world. This will be your first restoration assignment. Today we're going to head up the scaffolding and perform some restoration work on the obelisk. You'll need all of your new tools, so when you're ready, meet me on the top. Ciao! I'm here now. I don't have any tools, though. Quite a view from up here, isn't it? The first thing I want you to do is document the obelisk. You can take pictures and notes. Then when you're finished, return to me for your next task. Finish taking notes? Now you can start with your VR headset. Show you how this area possibly looked in 75 AD. Are you ready? I'm putting on VR headset in a video game. What is this? Isn't this technology amazing? The VR headset is transformed what it would look like in 75 AD. Even makes my clothing look historically accurate. But enough talk. How about you? Let's get to work. Have your AI block scanner scan the blocks. Blah, blah. So yeah, so where this like I said, so this does that still have the cross on it? No, it doesn't. They did remove that. Virtual reality, yeah. Yeah, so this is the circus that would have been uh, at the Vatican Hill. That's where it gets its name. It's one of the 7 hills of Rome. And this is where you could see horse races and some lesser gladiator fights and things like that. And it was also because of its proximity of where people would die. There was a necropolis. So they're like, well, here we go. There we go. Ancient inscriptions of the obelisk dedicated to Roman Emperor Augustus, while the base describes the rededication at 1586. Obelisk is made of red granite, but over the centuries, its deep red luster has dulled to a pale brown. Unlike other Egyptian obelisks, this has no hieroglyphics. It's believed to have originated from the city of Heliopolis on the Nile River. The red granite used for the obelisk is very hard stone. Perhaps this is why only the ancient obelisk in Rome to have never fallen. Okay, let's take off the VR headset and let's magically fix the blocks. Complimenti. Well, I guess we're done now. Oh, apparently I did it wrong. I like that even if they're just, you know, normal NPCs, they're still making villager noises. Okay. So now I have these blocks. There we go. It was getting them placed in the right order. I didn't realize I had to do that. There really wasn't clear indication. Check my work. Grazie mille. Thank you for your help in the restoration. Okay, that's done. Let's get to the baldachin. And of course there's a pigeon. Is nowhere sacred to you, pigeons? Yeah, I don't get why they have these M statues on the outsides here when they had perfectly good statues up there. But oh well. And there's 2 bell towers, by the way. That's what those dark squares are. And you don't know this, but there's a sacred pigeon pilgrimage site. Unfortunately, no one knows where it is. I thought that was, oh, what's that city in northern Italy? The St. Mark's Square. Or Spain. Isn't there like a big bird thing in Spain where the birds always show up each year? Yeah, this structure, 6 stories tall. It's kind of mind-boggling how tall it is. You can't even really tell because of how well it fits in the space. Yeah, the Swallows of Capistrano. Hi, Supervisor.
I was hoping you'd make it over here. This is St. Pierre's Baldacchino. It's covered by the main altar of St. Pierre's tomb. Everybody's John Lorenzo Bernini in 1624. A masterpiece, but not immune from the ravages of time.
They actually pretty recently touched this up.
Let us help the scaffolding perform some restoration work. Just need you to do is document it.
Okay. Calm down. Let's see what it looked like in 1624. It's probably going to look very similar. Okay, now this is actually cool, seeing it, like, under the construction. But yeah, you can see a lot of, like, the tile work or marble work of the sides is done, but the flooring is still incomplete. The altars are empty. That monument should not be there in 1624. Baldacchino and its pillars are made of bronze, alloy of copper and tin. Material is very durable. Needs to be cleaned regularly. Because Baldacchino is comprised of many materials, its restoration requires a talented variety of artists and tradesmen. Thanks, Bernini. Some say the copper used to build these pillars came from the roof of the Pantheon in the center of Rome. Others say it was transported from Venice. It's not entirely clear, but at the end of the result, it looks awesome. These pillars stand 12 meters tall. Bree, how tall is that? I don't know metric. They were cast in 3 sections. They're one of the more memorable aspects of St. Peter's Baldacchino. You finished scanning? Sure am. Is there an order to which church must be built? Does the altar have to come in last or something? No. Not necessarily. I mean, so in order to be consecrated, there needs to be an altar, and usually before you consecrate an altar, you want it to have actual walls and a roof. But a lot of decorating will happen later. For example, the church I'm at, Church of St. Paul the Apostle, was dedicated in 1885 and consecrated. But the Baldacchino actually wasn't completed for like another decade. It's 40 freedom foots. Thank you for that conversion. I understand now. Dang, that's tall. And like a lot of the artwork that you may see today wasn't in there yet, and side altars would be consecrated later. So complimenti. Okay, thank you. Yes. Check my work. 100%. Rotunda. Researchers found a niche with a marble casket inside. The remains in the casket were thought to be not of historical importance. So they were boxed up and stored and forgotten. Later in the 1950s, a scholar named Margarita researched the excavation. She was able to read the graffiti on the red wall where the casket was discovered. It said in Greek, Petros Eni, Peter is here. Which is actually the name of this whole module if you're looking for it. Anyway, Rotsta. I had something for this. Trying to remember what's going. Oh yeah, John's gospel is just continuing to set up the tension and the drama, preparing us for the Triduum. Particularly, Jesus speaking very sort of brusquely and straightforward in a way that isn't always quite what we see from him. Saying, Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times. Like, Jesus, at this point in the gospel, Jesus is like, it's going down. It's going to happen. But it is also Fig Tuesday. So each day of Holy Week, with the exceptions of Monday and Saturday, traditionally have a name associated with them. Being Fig Tuesday, Spy Wednesday, Maundy Thursday, and Good Friday, and then Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday. So happy Fig Tuesday, everyone. It's called that because in the gospel narrative, this is believed to be the day that before the crucifixion, that Jesus cursed the fig tree. Okay, it wants me to repair a column. My dude. There are so many columns here. Please be more specific. Yeah, you can see a little bit in the shape, especially with the baldacchino, the inspiration I took and the dome for the Basilica I built in Minecraft. I think the most annoying thing in education is I can't run. But I also, it makes sense that I shouldn't be running in St. Peter's. Yeah, I've heard you've been doing a great job restoring the Basilica. You know, I could really use your help here. Pillar needs to be repaired. Don't worry, it's still structurally sound. It has come some damage and worn over the years. Will you help? Sure. No running in school, we know that. Unless it's gym class. Yeah, I've documented it. Okay, it's 1546. Whoa! That is wild. Also, I thought that's not how this was constructed. Because I thought... So there have been several St. Peter's basilicas over the years. There was one built by Constantine. Then that got replaced. And I thought that the intermediate one to the modern one was just an extension, but I guess I'm wrong. I forget. I'm not a architectural historian. It's still cool just to see the kind of basic idea. And you can see the basilica style roofing there. St. Peter's or St. Peter's? Or St. Peter's basilicas. St. Peter's basilicas. Pillars made from Carrara marble. This beautiful type of marble mainly used in decorative parts as well as sculpted details. The base was made of travertine, a type of limestone. High quality travertine was strong and durable, but expensive, so it was used for more supporting structures like this. This area is made of granite and is the spoila, meaning it is the stone that has been repurposed. The spoila in the basilica was taken from the older Roman buildings, such as the Colosseum. St. Peter's basilicas cover all the bases, add apostrophes as desired. That feels cursed. Thank you. These Corinthian pillars are made from travertine and iron. If the iron supports corrodes, they can expand and crack the stone, so it's important to carefully inspect and maintain the pillar. That seems like a bad idea to make it out of. Rate my work. 10 out of 10. Oh, also when you log out of this, there's a certificate you can print for having completed it. I'm breaking the rules. You're not supposed to use that gateway unless you're someone important. Given that you're only a real human in this space, you are somewhat important. Yeah, but also, you know... Hey, you've arrived. Hope it wasn't too hard to find. This place seems like a maze. This is the tomb of St. Peter, the first pope. It's a very important place, not only to us, but to people throughout the world. Be sure to continue its preservation. Need all your tools. Let's go! Let's-a go! Okay, document. Yeah, I'm wondering what this will look like. Area 480. Okay, so this would have been the original basilica built by Constantine then, is what this is. That's really cool. Also, I think I'm... Yeah, and this is very much what a basilica would have looked like. Uh-oh. Oops! I time traveled too hard. Give me a moment as I get that fixed. Maybe you should have used that gate. See, I told you. Told you I was breaking the rules. I don't think this autosaves. It does. Okay, that's good. Wee clunk. Rotata. I already did rotata. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, it's just that. Oh, there's this. This is gone now. That was supposed to be there. I'm going places I'm not supposed to. Yeah, just we're continuing sort of the march towards the crucifixion through the Gospel of John, and it's very dramatic and very. Jesus is just kind of very much like, this is it. This is the time. This is happening. So it's just it's a powerful way to prepare us spiritually for it. But this is very much like what a Roman basilica would have looked like. And so when Constantine legalized Christianity and then made the state religion, he was like, hey, church, I will build you a church. Do you want me to build you a temple or a basilica? And it was important to know the difference between temples were typically were small. They, to Romans, culturally coming out of the pagan experience, it was a place you went, you offered your sacrifice, usually incense, and you left. That was it. Basilicas were places of gathering. They were where the baths were, where the markets were. So the Pope at the time was like, give us a basilica because we're going to be gathering and it's going to be a while. And so Romans will understand better if it's a basilica that it's a place of gathering. So that's where we get this sort of long box shape with an apse on one side when it comes to church design. And this is very much what it would have looked like, is honestly this long hallway, this style of these beams holding up the roof. This is very, this is actually really accurate. And then, yeah, the early, this may not have been here, I think. No, I think actually some form of a wall would have been here early on to separate this the sanctuary. It wasn't as intricate as a rood screen or an iconostasis, but it was in early Byzantine and Roman tradition. A lot of the churches have kind of like a waist-high wall with these large open windows. Is this what it looked like back then? As best as we can guess. I mean, obviously we don't have photos, but it is a fairly accurate depiction of what a Roman basilica built as a Christian church would have looked like. I'm not sure what these are supposed to be, because the concept of side altars would not have been a thing until later. Builders use simple bricks and plaster to create this small marker. After the Edict of Milan, Emperor Constantine began to build St. Peter's Church, excavating the necropolis and filling it with soil. St. Peter's tomb, however, was spared and remained undiscovered until the 1940s. The trophy of Gaius was used to mark the place of St. Peter, buried some 100 years after his death. Yeah, so this was not his tomb per se, but it was, hey, we're building on top of this tomb. We're using this to show that this is the place. It's tomb-like, but isn't the tomb. Structure was built in the 2nd century, long before the basilica was even planned. There are still a lot of questions about this structure, even though it's been studied for years. Still many secrets to uncover. Right below this plate, the remains of St. Peter's were found. This is why the basilica was built here, to honor the first pope of the Catholic Church. Check my work. Awesome job. It looks exactly like it did in the past. Great work. Told Margarita about the remains, which she then was able to recover and have analyzed. The bones matched the description of Peter, lending credence to the discovery. Took nearly 300 years of labor and research to find and preserve the St. Peter's tomb. The work of San Pietrini continues to this day, as they restore and preserve the history and culture of the Vatican. I hope you enjoyed the story and understand now why the efforts of San Pietrini are so important to preserving our cultural heritage. You have done an excellent job here, and so I now bestow on you honorary San Pietrino. Basilica restoration is complete. Now visitors can admire all of it in its glory. Thanks to you for your commitment and dedication to restoring St. Peter's Basilica and preserving this important piece of history and culture. Thank you. You're now free to explore the Basilica as you wish, uncovering all the secrets and wonders. Use the smart compass to reach points of interest and discover new areas. Enjoy your journey. So I want to see if the Vatican had something on the Gaius. Hey, K-Max, thank you for the raid. Just did Control F tomb as if I'd find something. Let me show you something cool, K-Max. Skill raid. Hey, Lone Game Master. Hey, Game Max. We're doing well. We have been exploring St. Peter's Basilica. Hey, Gert. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the channel. Anyway, welcome to St. Peter's. I shared this fact with the rest of chat earlier, but This red stone right here, this is the stone upon which Charlemagne was crowned. Hey, Anonymous, thank you for the gift to GG Chalker. Yeah. And there's like nothing really signifying it when you get there. It's just there. It's right there by the entrance. You just casually miss it. I love it. It's just, there's so much history here that they're like, eh. Yeah, they put it into education, and it's pretty good. Like, let me find a painting or a mosaic, and they did a pretty good job of capturing them. Is this the scale? It's pretty close, honestly, just given Minecraft scaling. And they didn't put them in here, but there are words along this gold ring. And they're quite easy to read from the ground. But the crazy thing is, they are 2 meters tall. I mean, the baldacchino here is 6 stories, so... And I like, they captured some of the statuary using Minecraft figures, which I think is cute. I love this actual statue of St. Longinus in real life. It's such a dynamic pose, because he's like turning and his cape is flowing behind him in the turn. Also, it's hard to tell because of how they've designed these, but what is this? St. Jerome Emiliani. Oh, okay. I like Jerome Emiliani. Cared for children orphaned by a disease in Venice, risking his own health to keep them safe. In the sculpture, 2 children stand by him, and their faces look incredibly real, almost like living people. Pietro Bracci would have used sketches from life or small clay models to understand every subtle expression before carving it into costly marble. Gonna swap to phone. All right. So they've designed these confessionals to have 2 rooms, but from the outside there are 3 if you look at it. This middle space is actually a room, and the top would open up, and this is like standard design in Rome. And so if you want to go behind the screen, you come into like one of these little side compartments, and there's the screen. There may or may not be a curtain to draw. There usually isn't. But if you want to go face to face, you literally just go straight up to the confessor, like, what up? Just kneeling right in front of him. And of course, like, every confessor here speaks 2 or 3 languages. Because, you know, it's the Vatican. It has to serve basically everyone from around the world. So it's really amazing to see. What does it say about St. Helen? By Andrea Bolgi, St. Helen, mother of Emperor Constantine, had gone on an adventurous trek to Jerusalem around 326 AD, searching for religious relics. Bolgi carved her mid-step with robe in motion. Some historians view her as an example of early archaeologists searching the world for ancient artifacts. Yes, and in tradition, she found the old... Is there a country that does not have a Catholic church? North Korea. St. Longinus. Also Bernini. I knew it. I knew there was a reason I liked it. Legend of Soldier mentioning Christian stories is captured in stone, swirling drapery that seems caught by a gust of wind, yet it's all unyielding marble. Bernini often used shifting natural light to enhance the drama, positioning sculptures in sunbeams, so sunbeams fall on them at certain angles of the day. Also, the Forbidden Islands. Forbidden Islands. I feel like this is a reference and my brain's forgetting it. Or it's an actual place and I don't know it. But it sounds forbidden. So maybe I shouldn't know forbidden knowledge. St. Andrew statue by Francois. St. Andrew stands before an X-shaped cross called a saltire. Francois took 5 years to get every detail perfect. If you look up close, you might spot a tiny chisel mark showing how carefully he worked. Francois would first make small wax or clay model prototypes before tackling the giant marble block, a technique still used by artists today. It's a real place from India. It's a place, the people who live there are tribal. When I learned about it, all I could think about is how I can save them. Huh, I have not heard of that. I'll have to read more about that. There are islands that have hostile, uncontacted peoples. Those likely don't have Catholic churches. Yeah, that likely would not have a Catholic church. I mean, there are also kind of the uncontacted tribes in the Amazon. If we want to count those. By Mochi. I have a feeling no relation to this sweet Japanese street. It's said that St. Veronica wiped Jesus' face with a cloth during his walk to the crucifixion. In this sculpture, she's depicted in full motion, her robes swirling like a gust of wind hit them, making this one of the Baroque period's earliest wow moments. Before this style, statues were usually calm and poised. Baroque brought action and drama, making viewers feel like they'd stepped into a story. Does Bhutan have a Catholic church? That's a great question. I don't know. I just know that for sure, as far as nations go, North Korea probably doesn't. They're super isolationist Buddhist kingdom. Then probably not, but again, I do not have the Catholic yearbook with me. And I forget what it's that's called, like the Annuario Pontifico. It actually like lists out all the dioceses in the world, and like how many parishes, how many priests they have. I live here now. Let's see. Is this the Tomb of Alexander the Seventh? Let me see if I can find an image of that one for you. Oh, none of these are really great quality. There it is. Oh, open image, new tab. Yeah, so this is the tomb that they're talking about with Death, and I love Death kind of caught under this drapery, but also still kind of coming up and strictly reminding me like no one is safe from the passage of time. It is such a dramatic piece to see in person. And for the limitations that they have, you know, they have the drapery, they have the other figures, and they have Pope Clement VII praying. So it's not bad. Is that who the Alexander summon is based on from Final Fantasy? I don't think so. If I had to guess, it might be Alexander the Great, but or it could just randomly be that someone at Square was like, "Hey, you know what's a great name? Alexander." There are 3 Catholic congregations in North Korea. Huh. They'll only let you be Catholic if your family was Catholic before, unknown if they have clergy or where they get their clergy. Huh. I learn something new every day. Oh, may God be with those communities and help them to thrive. Hello, little door. Thought Alexander is based on Arthurian legend character. That could be. That could also be. What's this little door to? 47. I see it on the map, but it doesn't say what it leads to. We should have St. Michael as a summon. Oh, this is fascinating. Look at these, the backs of these chairs. If I look at it at the right angle, they're using one of the door textures. I find it funny that the Wandering Priest Bhutan is a Jesuit, because of course he is. They pop up everywhere. I mean, they're good at that. They have a strong history of missionary work. Jesuits wandering into unknown places to preach and do science. And it's not just Jesuits who do science. Oh, this is an anvil. This is an anvil they've retextured. Look, I can even use it. Oh, that's so clever. Also, I think they're missing some. Mendel was an Augustinian. Lab work calls. Hey, thank you for the lurk. You take care, Step Zero. I feel like the colors up there, for everything else where they captured clearly a mosaic or a painting, I feel like a lot of those little details they could have done the same, but maybe there's memory constraints or something. I don't know. But there's just a lot of small statuary and just figures all over the place. Like there's where is it? I forget exactly where it is, but there are just like a series of statues that or mosaics that are representative of different virtues. Oh, and I was right. The altar of Saint Jerome, which is just around this corner, has the body of Pope John the 23rd in it. I like Pope John the 23rd. He was a jolly dude. Did a report on some Jesuit books that were printed in Douay from one of your classes. A friend from church has some cool books. I took a look at them. Nice. I just got a book from one of the early Paulus in the mail today, printed in 1868. Hey, I fixed that. Why can I not get in there now? That's weird. Seems like a glitch. I do like to dabble in bad games. I also like to babble in bad games. Anyway, do I have any recommendations for GBA bad games out of curiosity? Like any particular kind of bad you're looking for? Or any franchise? It's usually good to go with some sort of a franchise. Corey's house. That sounds like it'd be pretty bad. Any particular running a bad game hour for charity this stream? Two currently, if I had any particular. How about a license like Spider-Man? Oh, I bet there's some bad Man, poor Spider-Man. Like some Spider-Man games are very good. And then there's some others that just exist. Got a lurk. Hey, thank you for the lurk, Lone Game Master. You take care. Dang it, there was a monument in here that I want to show off. It's like for all the monuments to various people and saints in history, there are just some monuments as well to like donors and patrons. That's kind of interesting to see. Batman and Spider-Man probably have the best track record of superhero games. They do, but they also have some real stinkers in there, especially sort of before a certain point. Okay, I doubt it's going to be here, but if you come over this way, there's a statue of Constantine on his horse. And yeah, no, they don't have it. I want to fall down there and explore, but I'd be afraid I'd never get back. I like how they've used these open gate pieces. I may have to remember that for my own builds. Bad GBA games. Give me a moment. I'm gonna leave y'all. You can enjoy this beautiful screen. Just reflect on the beauty of St. Peter's. I gotta look in my drawer for weird games. Oh, is that like the original Sonic the Hedgehog port? Because like I thought Sonic Advance were fine. Oh, Shrek Racing. Oh. Original Sonic ported. Ooh, I bet that's bad. North Korea also is one of the only remaining territorial abbeys that has been absorbed into a diocese. Doesn't have an ordinary or any other clergy, though. Huh. Is that an Orthodox monastery or a Western abbey? Anyway, two games I found in my drawer for you, K-Max, from the days of the Kingdom Hearts we have at home, which is something I might return to at some point because it's fun. Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Literally any of the Pirates of the Caribbean games you can find are not going to be great. And they're also cheap. They're like $5. The other one was Cinderella Magical Dreams. It wants to be a platformer. Territorial Abbey is a Catholic thing. Ah, okay. Wasn't sure on that. Was not sure. So that makes sense, though. Thank you. I'll try to think some others and DM you if I think of any. Okay, Max. It's a Benedictine monastery. Cool. Because I knew like territorial abbeys were a thing historically, but like I didn't realize that one existed. So that's what threw me off. Oh, fun fact, when you have a wedding in St. Peter's, first of all, they're very strict about time and when you have to be there, etc., because they usually have several a day. But also to respect your privacy, because, you know, St. Peter's is full of tourists, pilgrims, etc., people taking pictures. There's actually a giant curtain that they'll draw across this gateway so that you can just have your wedding mass in peace. Is that corner really interesting, bud? There's like a really cool painting right here of the Transfiguration by Raphael, but you know, you do you in the corner. I think we read this one. Yeah. Gregory the Great. Maybe it was in the Crypts, the one I'm thinking of. What's this saint? John of God! Imagine the type of person who would race into a burning building to save patients, and you might picture heroic Saint John of God, founder of the Brothers Hospitalier. The folds of his robes are so smooth you might mistake them for cloth. To get those realistic folds, sculptors often practiced draping real fabric on mannequins, then sketched every crease before carving. John of God is a pretty cool saint. Oh, that's cool too. I'm appreciating a lot of how they utilize certain Minecraft things, but modulated them because like this is a piece of wall, so normally you can't get it in the gold texture. Every time in Territory Abbey, besides the one in North Korea, some historic monastery in Europe. Yeah, that's where my mind went. One time I was playing Passport with my niece, and I said, I want to go to Japan to play the latest Mega Man game. Then she said, and I want to go to France to play the latest Wonder Woman game. Hello? I'm stuck. What's the monument? Where was it? What was I thinking of? The problem is I've been exploring this to get a sense of the space. What does Wonder Woman have to do with games? Or France? She's lifting out favorite things, so she did the same. I mean, that's valid. So she likes France, Wonder Woman, and games. But I've been exploring this to make sure I knew where I was, especially in the lower levels. And I've been looking at the maps on the Vatican website and consulting and like looking at things. So maybe I looked at something there. So IRL, if we were to be wandering around, we would easily get lost. I feel like I haven't spent a ton of time in the catacomb or crypt. Just look at all these tombs. Tombs. I feel like a lot of it's roped off to visitors, so it's not easy to get lost. And a lot of it, you're also being led through by a tour guide, so you probably would be following them. Or some areas like here, the inside the Confessio, which, that's teleporting us between two maps. That's like a Doom wad. Like you cannot access that. And so I think only one of these staircases, because each of these 4 pillars has a staircase down. But I think only one is typically opened, and they usually have like a docent letting people in at a regular rate. So you have to kind of stand in line for a bit. So you can't just go charging down there and get lost. Now, inside the upper Basilica, a lot of this is fairly open for you to walk around. Like, they obviously have the area around the high altar blocked off, so you can't just walk up there, but you can get pretty close. And it also depends on, is there a mass happening there? Is something going on? Who is this a monument to? 52. Clement the 10th. I think they did a really good job, though, the architects of this space, because like these mini facades inside are very Roman and evoke sort of the history of the space, and yet the large archway roofing much more Baroque, especially with all the gold. look at that view. Look at that floor. So much of the mosaic work. I mean, obviously the actual mosaics on the walls are beautiful, but just like the flooring and the walls. St. Peter's is just really well designed. It's always breathtaking. And yeah, this, if you look here, you can actually kind of see there's like a, I'll turn this on again. There's a figure on each side of the archways here. Those are the ones I was talking about earlier that represent different virtues. And what's interesting is that there are so many of them that they go beyond the classical 4 cardinal virtues and 3 theological. And they actually wind up having all sorts of not create, like, it's not like they're making them up, but it's interesting to see which ones they chose and how, and what they represent. Where was it? Here's the list. The allegory statues. You have ecclesiastical authority, divine justice, virginity, obedience, humility, patience, justice, fortitude, prudence, hope, Catholic faith, justice, humility, immortality. That's an interesting one. Thought, compassion, purity, benignity, like being benign, liberality, vigilance, charity, faith, innocence, peace, clemency, constancy, mercy, fortitude. Benignity. Never heard that one before. So I think that's where we're going to call it for the day. I'm going to take a screenshot of this, though, because it's beautiful. But ending a little bit early, about 10 minutes early, but I feel like we've seen all there is within this iteration of St. Peter's, obviously. Please, if you ever get the chance, do go in person. It is astounding, and there is so much more detail and so much more to just take in and pray with. So many great saints, not just depicted there, but actually entombed there. You know, if you can go to a mass celebrate there, it's profound. Need to go, just need money. Yeah, that's a mood. That is valid. But if you get the chance, I recommend it. Yeah, a whole day is never enough. But, you know, sometimes you can't even take it all. Like, even if you did objectively see everything in a day, which you could do, you can't take it all in. You just can't. So, you know, you take in what you can, and the big sites. So thanks so much for tuning in to Let Us Play. I've been your host, Father Evan. It's been to be with y'all today and take this little pilgrimage to St. Peter's. Hopefully you get the chance by the end of this holy year to make the pilgrimage, or in a future holy year every 25 years. Join us again tomorrow for more Minecraft. That'll just be the regular midweek Minecraft, continuing work on the Opera House. Speaking of opera, I'm going to go see the Barber of Seville tonight, so I'll be talking all about that, I imagine. And then for the True, I'm not streaming, so there won't be any stream Thursday or Monday. So I will be back the following Tuesday with the game Wildmender, and then more midweek Minecraft and more Siberia too. So thank you to everyone who's liked, followed, subscribed, given bits, all that good jazz. Thank you, K-Max, for the raid, and someone else raid? No, that was the only raid, right? Yeah, that was the only raid. And yeah, thank you to everyone who's checked out the YouTube and the Discord as well. And why don't we see who's live that we can raid into? Well, Neko is live. We're going to send you on over to Neko. He's working on his 3D modeling. Raid call will be, I think, just Father. No, Fig raid. Fig raid, because it's Fig Tuesday. Put it there in chat if you want to copy and paste it. But go give Neko some love. He's a good dude. And other than that, I will see you all later. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care and God bless.